So I know technically the cheapest Speedmaster is the Moonswatch, but that's more like an Omega Toy Master. Yeah, let's call it that. That's really not a Speedmaster. But this, the watch we're taking a look at in this video, it's a true Speedmaster, and it's one of the cheapest ones on the market. We're going to go over the watch, my thoughts on it, and then whether you should get the cheapest Speedy on the market. So this right here is the Omega Speedmaster date. Yes, date. It has a date complication. The reference is 3513.50, I think, on this bracelet. And this is one of the far less common Speedmasters because of the aforementioned date function. In terms of specifications, this is 39 millimeters in case diameter. It's got a thickness of about 14 millimeters, a lug to lug of 45 or so millimeters, and a lug width of 18 millimeters. Really thin lug width. This is also an automatic Speedmaster, so that's quite a benefit. It uses the Valjoux 7751, that's the one with the date complication, and it's got a power reserve of about 44 hours. What I like most about this watch is that it's automatic. I'm really not a fan of the date function because it dates the watch, and also that date window, it's ugly as hell. But that aside, in terms of general design, the side profile of the case is so nice. It's meticulous. The actual dimensions of the watch are quite nice, albeit on the smaller side for a watch with a chronograph and a thickness of 14 millimeters thanks to the Valjoux movement architecture. This watch sports a nice raised sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating on the underside, the side you want it to be on so it doesn't scratch. And the sexiest thing about all Speedmasters, including this one, is their lug design. It's just great. I love the sharp contours of the case, and it's also a good way to spot if the watch has been incessantly polished or not because it won't retain the sharpness. The disadvantage of this design is it's far more prone to indentation and damage because of the angular surfaces. The case back itself is solid and pretty regular, not a display case back, so nothing much to remark. Now let's talk about the dial. The most important characteristic in a watch is typically the dial. It's the thing that always makes or breaks a watch. However, when it comes to this piece, I would like to argue that the dial is of lesser importance. It's not a shabby dial by any means, but I think there's a lot going on, especially with all the shiny silver markers and chronograph hands. It's certainly one of the more dressy Speedmasters, with the size and just the reflectiveness of it. Seems like a shiny dress watch. In fact, just going on the dial alone, I'm not sure it really carries too many hallmarks of the Speedy product line. I think it's a little bit different. It's different to the Moonwatch, most certainly. I really like the hands and how they reflect the light, but particularly more in somber and dim lighting, not in bright sunlight. For some reason, in low light conditions, it just pops a lot more and highlights all the special features of the watch and kind of hides the rest that you don't like as much. Despite being an older, cheaper, and kind of a baby Speedmaster, the bracelet is far more solid than I expected it to be. The links are perfectly weighted and feel quality in the hand. It's just that the bracelet is so thin that it kind of reminds you of one of those jewelry bands or something like that because it starts at 18 and still tapers. And the clasp itself is pretty decent. Now the links themselves, I really appreciate the center link and how it's framed with those polished bits. I think the contrast that provides is way better than the PCLs that Rolex uses. And overall the design, I think it looks cooler than the Oyster bracelet. Of course, it's not better in terms of ergonomics, feel, comfort than the Oyster bracelet, but it's really nice. It does remind me of the President style bracelet that Rolex uses as well because of the links themselves, the way they're contoured, and also the clasp itself, it's kind of hidden. So how does it wear? It wears more like a dress watch. It is much thicker than a dress watch and you do see it as a Speedmaster. But for me, on my wrist, it kind of wears on the smaller side. It's still really nice. I would see it to be more of a dress watch than like a true Speedmaster sports watch, mainly because of the dimensions. There's nothing too special about how it wears, just that it would probably fit a lot more wrists, and it looks kind of small on larger wrists, especially with the extremely busy dial, relatively busy dial, compared to the size. For some reason, even though the Daytona is kind of the same dimensions in actuality. This does feel more cluttered, and it does feel smaller than the Daytona. That's also to do with the lug-to-lug length, though. The Daytona has more. So now on to whether you should get one of the cheapest Speedies on the market. Especially with the Moonswatch stuff going on right now. I think the entire Omega market has kind of shifted a bit higher. But still, these Speedmaster dates and the calendar Speedmasters, they're less common and they're not that expensive relatively. You can still find them around the $2,000 to $2,500 mark, I think, if you're lucky, a little bit less than that. And I think that's a really good price for what you're getting, particularly with the automatic movement. The date complication I don't care so much for, but it's a Speedmaster with a chronograph and an automatic movement. Of course, it's not one of the coaxial newer stuff, but nevertheless, it's a really nice watch at that price range too. And in terms of construction, it's really solid. It all comes down to whether the size is right at 39, whether that fits your bill, and whether you like the design enough. The other thing to note is servicing. Ideally, the watch has been recently serviced because that would offset the actual cost of the watch a lot if you're looking for the cheapest Speedy and then you buy one and then it needs servicing. It's not close to the cheapest Speedy anymore because that is like 20% of the value of the watch. So overall, should you get the cheapest Speedy on the market? Yes, I do think you should if you're okay with the size, you like the design, and you've been wanting a Speedy, or do you have some other automatic chronograph recommendation in the similar league. Leave your thoughts down below in the comment section and check out one of these videos. You'll probably like them.